Imagine this, $2,000 suddenly showing up in your bank account. No strings, no loans, no waiting in line, just cash instantly. For anyone who's ever dreamed of a surprise government payout, this is the kind of news that makes your heart race. Donald Trump has recently announced a proposal to give Americans exactly that, $2,000 checks, funded not by taxes or borrowing, but by tariffs collected from imported goods. The promise is simple, powerful, and almost irresistible. Free money that could cover bills, pay down debt, or even fund a mini shopping spree. It's no wonder people are talking about it non-stop. But as exciting as it sounds, there's a catch. The math behind it doesn't quite add up, and the reality may be very different from the headline. So, what is this proposal really about? Trump suggests that the United States could pay every qualifying American $2,000 using revenue from tariffs. Tariffs are taxes collected on imported goods, and the idea is that this tariff dividend could be a way to directly reward Americans while simultaneously keeping the government budget balanced. For people who love stimulus checks, this sounds like the ultimate win. Money in your pocket without raising your taxes or waiting years for economic growth to trickle down. The announcement has caused excitement across the country, especially among families who have been hoping for a boost in cash flow. But here's the thing. Experts are warning that while the idea is appealing, the logistics and numbers behind it are far more complicated. The amount of money needed to make $2,000 payments to millions of Americans is actually twice what the government is realistically bringing in from tariffs. This raises big questions about whether the checks are feasible, when they could actually arrive, and who would qualify. In this video, we'll break down everything you need to know. We'll look at how much the plan would cost, how tariffs generate revenue, why there's a massive gap between what's promised and what's available, and what all this means for you, the hopeful recipient. By the end, you'll understand not just the promise, but the reality, and you'll know exactly what to expect if you're dreaming of getting that $2,000 check. Stay with us, because the numbers behind this seemingly magical payout might surprise you. Donald Trump recently announced a proposal that has captured the attention of millions of Americans. $2,000 checks to qualifying citizens, funded through tariff revenue. The idea is straightforward in theory: collect taxes on imported goods, pool that money, and distribute it directly to Americans. For anyone who has been hoping for a financial boost, this sounds like a dream come true. People imagine paying off bills, stocking up on essentials, or even enjoying a little extra spending money. Trump framed it as a tariff dividend, emphasizing that it wouldn't come from taxpayer dollars in the traditional sense, but from the government's income from imported goods. However, while the headline is exciting, the reality is far more complex. The administration has not clarified exactly who qualifies, whether children are included, or where the income cutoffs lie. Legal and logistical questions also remain unresolved. The proposal has sparked hope among stimulus check enthusiasts, but analysts caution that enthusiasm should be tempered. Without a detailed plan, there's no guarantee these checks will arrive, and the numbers behind the promise may make this dream harder to achieve than it appears. The excitement over $2,000 checks often overlooks the staggering cost behind the plan. To give every qualifying American $2,000 would require hundreds of billions of dollars. For example, if roughly 150 million adults qualify, that's $300 billion right off the bat. Nonpartisan analysts estimate the actual cost could reach $600 billion depending on eligibility, which is double the revenue Trump claims will fund it. To put it in perspective, that's more than some entire government programs receive in a year. Even supporters of stimulus checks have to pause when considering these numbers. Funding a payout of this magnitude is not as simple as writing a check. The government would need a consistent, reliable source of revenue. Otherwise, the cost could either increase the national deficit or require cuts elsewhere, creating potential ripple effects across the economy. While $2,000 per person sounds manageable individually, scaled across millions of Americans, the total expense becomes staggering. The math raises questions about feasibility and timing. Can the government really collect enough from tariffs to cover such payments? Or is this more of a political statement than a realistic plan? To understand the proposal, it's essential to grasp how tariffs generate revenue. Tariffs are taxes placed on imported goods, effectively increasing the cost of foreign products entering the United States. The revenue collected goes directly to the U.S. Treasury and is supposed to supplement government funds. On paper, it seems simple. The more goods imported, the more revenue collected. However, there are hidden complications. Tariffs can reduce demand for imported goods, which in turn lowers revenue. Companies and consumers often absorb the cost in higher prices, which can decrease overall consumption and lead to lower tax revenue from other areas. Additionally, tariffs can spark trade disputes, sometimes resulting in refunds or legal challenges that reduce the anticipated income. In Trump's proposal, the assumption is that tariff revenue could fully fund $2,000 payments, but economists warn that the effective revenue is much lower than the gross numbers. The U.S. may collect billions in tariffs annually, but after accounting for offsets, the real funds available for distribution shrink dramatically. Understanding these mechanics is key for anyone hoping for a check because it explains why excitement might not match the fiscal reality. One of the most critical issues with the $2,000 check plan is the revenue shortfall. According to the latest data, the U.S. Treasury collected around $309 billion in gross tariff revenue through October. On the surface, that seems significant, but net revenue, after considering economic impacts, refunds, and trade offsets, is closer to $90 billion. Now consider that paying $2,000 to even a fraction of the population would cost at least $300 billion. That means the government would need more than 3 times the actual revenue available. This gap is what economists call a shortfall, and it's a major obstacle to turning the proposal into reality. Even if Congress tried to authorize the payout, there simply wouldn't be enough money in the Treasury from tariffs alone. Legal challenges to tariffs could reduce the expected revenue even further, making the shortfall unpredictable. The shortfall doesn't just affect the feasibility of a one-time payment. It also raises questions about fiscal responsibility, inflation, and the national debt. For anyone dreaming of $2,000, it's a reminder that headlines don't always tell the full story, and understanding the numbers is critical before getting too excited. Even if the government found a way to issue $2,000 checks without sufficient tariff revenue, there would be significant fiscal risks. Funding such a large payout without revenue would likely increase the national deficit, adding hundreds of billions to government debt. This can have long-term consequences for the economy, including higher interest rates and inflationary pressures. Economists warn that while one-time payments can stimulate spending, repeated or unfunded payouts can destabilize the economy. There's also the risk of reducing funds for other government programs if resources are diverted to cover the checks. On the individual level, stimulus fans might celebrate the cash influx, but the broader economic consequences could eventually affect everyone through higher prices and slower economic growth. Essentially, what seems like an immediate win could have delayed costs. Understanding these fiscal implications is crucial for anyone rooting for stimulus checks. It's not just about getting money today. It's about how those payments are funded and what the government sacrifices or risks to make them happen. Another major question surrounding the $2,000 checks is eligibility. Trump has mentioned excluding high-income individuals, but no specific thresholds have been officially announced. Will the checks go to adults only, or will children be included? How will household income be calculated? Without these details, it's impossible to know who will benefit. The uncertainty leaves many stimulus enthusiasts hopeful but unsure. Some families may plan their budgets around the expectation of receiving the full $2,000, while others may not qualify at all. Additionally, the government would need a robust system to verify eligibility and distribute payments, which could delay delivery. For fans of stimulus checks, this uncertainty is frustrating because it keeps the outcome hanging in the balance. While the concept of a $2,000 payout excites many, the practicalities of implementation are complicated. Until the administration releases clear eligibility rules, anyone hoping for the money should temper expectations and understand that not everyone may receive it. It is important to recognize that the 2,000 check proposal is as much a political move as a practical one. Headlines promise cash in your hands, which resonates with voters and garners media attention. For stimulus lovers, this can feel thrilling. However, translating a political statement into actual payments requires congressional approval, detailed legislation, and a careful assessment of economic impact. The numbers suggest that funding $2,000 payments through tariffs alone is unlikely. This doesn't necessarily mean the checks won't happen, but it may take a different form, such as tax credits or phased payments, rather than a straight cash dividend. Understanding the difference between political messaging and practical feasibility helps viewers stay grounded. While it's tempting to focus on the excitement, being aware of the hurdles ensures that hopes aren't dashed by the realities of government finance. So, what can we learn from all this? First, $2,000 checks are exciting, but the cost is enormous, hundreds of billions of dollars. Second, the plan relies on tariff revenue, which is much lower than needed once economic offsets are considered. Third, eligibility is unclear, and legal, logistical, and political challenges remain. Finally, while it's easy to get caught up in the dream of free money, understanding the numbers and obstacles provides a clearer picture. For stimulus lovers, the takeaway is to stay informed, remain hopeful but realistic, and recognize that while a $2,000 check sounds amazing, it may take more than headlines to make it a reality. In the meantime, keeping an eye on government announcements and economic analysis will give you the best chance to know if and when the money could arrive. And there you have it, the full story behind the $2,000 checks everyone is talking about. On the surface, it's an exciting idea. Instant cash in your account, a financial boost, and a chance to catch up on bills or treat yourself. But as we've seen, the reality is much more complicated. Funding such payments through tariffs alone falls far short of the promised amount. Eligibility rules are still unclear, and political and economic hurdles could delay or even prevent the checks from ever arriving. For all the stimulus check lovers out there, it's a reminder that while dreaming is fun, understanding the numbers and the process is essential. So, stay informed, follow updates, and don't base your plans entirely on headlines. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want to stay ahead of the latest news on government payouts, stimulus proposals, and financial insights, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and join our community. The money may not arrive tomorrow, but staying informed today ensures you're ready for every opportunity that comes your way.